There is some great new iRacing content on the way. One of these confirmed pieces is a racetrack here in Australia that a great historic driver said is Australia's action track. So I'm really excited for that. We're going to break down the content today so we can have a good idea of what to expect. So the reason I thought to do this video now, this content was officially unveiled that it's coming 2 or 3 months ago. Now, what iRacing tend to do from what I've seen over a couple years of using the service is they have this kind of promotion marketing strategy. Now, if they stick to it or not, it's completely up to them. But normally what they do is kind of just into the beginning of a season or early on to a year. Seasons go for 3 months. They'll announce something. And every single time they've done this, it's because they're nearing the final stages of the development. And then come the end of the 12-week season, the 3 months, we have the week downtime with all the crazy racing and stuff. And then they deploy some of this new content, such as last season just gone was the Porsche 992. And then they'll have this week-long event, shiny new shakedown, where everyone can join in, it's unranked, and try out the new content that they've just bought. I think it's a great little marketing idea. So what they've confirmed is 2 new racetracks and iRacing to tie in nicely to this Australian package. Now, we're here in Australia, so obviously I'm really excited for it. But the tracks themselves, I've studied, I've seen racing on them, and I do think they're gonna appeal to all road circuit users in a great way. And just how I said that they do this marketing strategy, they've released this a couple months ago, which means I'm pretty confident that only, what are we now, week 8 or something, in 4 or 5 weeks, we're gonna have these new products to purchase. So now is a great time, I think, to do this. Starting off with the AI, because you know, the tracks are probably the most impressive thing about this, but the AI is something I didn't see iRacing doing, and they've been slowly but surely rolling it out to every category. So I know we've got some NASCARs in there, we have the Porsche Cup car, we have, you know, there's a couple of different options. I think Formula 3 was the newest one they added. So now they're bringing it to AI to the supercars, which pairs in nicely because these are 2 racetracks that they're also bringing. The supercars go there, so they're really going for a big push here. So AI racing will be coming into a full championship and race a computer on that, and everyone can have a heap of fun without having the full-on stress of always having to queue ranked competitive events where if you don't feel like putting in your best effort, it will tax your account and your ability and hinder your performance in the future if you get put into lower ranks, etc. So AI racing will be coming, which is cool. You can do your own Bathurst 1000, which is only a few weeks away, and I'll be there in person. You can do it on the computer with a field of other V8 supercars whenever you want. Now let's jump into these racetracks. So the first one coming is called Sandown International Raceway, and I'm really happy that they've gone and laser scanned this asset, because tracks that we already have in the service now that are Australian is Phillip Island, Mount Panorama / Bathurst, and Oran Park. Now Oran Park is a track that iRacing crew flew over. They have to scan it in person. They managed to get it scanned and the files and add it into the game, which is awesome because that track no longer exists. Now, towards the end of this video, we'll cover a point with it may happen again with this track here. So really happy they've scanned it in. And let's have a look at the history of this track. So then we can be a little bit more excited about when that event comes up and we can race it on iRacing, knowing a bit more about the circuits themselves. So Sandown International Raceway was built around an old horse track from the 19th century. So they pulled it around the outside. I think from the Google Maps standpoint, if I get a photo of it, you can actually see the old horse track. I don't know if they still, I think they still do actually use it as well. So nice combo. So the first event they had on this track was on the 11th of March, 1962. Now, when I did a bit of digging into this, I was actually kind of like dumbfounded and surprised because it's really cool. This first event that they had was called the Sandown International Grand Prix. Now, names that they had here for this first event include Jim Clark, Jack Brabham, we've got Bruce McLaren, Sterling Moss, and John Surtees. Now, they all were there on the first race the Sandown ever had. Now, its original layout has been changed. It was in 1984 that they extended it. So I think it was about 3 kilometers, and they extended it to 3.9 kilometers. Now, as a exchange, that's 2.4 miles for you US guys out there. Now, they had it there for 5 years at this more extended track, and soon will look exactly what they have now, like an onboard, because I really want to get a good feel for what I can expect when iRacing drops these tracks, and you can already have an idea how to tackle it. But in 1989, only a few years after they extended the damn thing, they then reverted back to an older style. So they brought it back to 3.1 kilometers, or about 1.9 miles, only 5 years or so after having this extension to it. But they did make a few changes. So no longer using the original turn 8, but instead they modified turn 13 slightly. So they used to have this finicky little midsection to the track that wasn't very popular. So they axed that. Now, motorcycles, when they raced there, continued to use this up to the year 2000, which is good because the S's are notorious on this track, because I know a little bit about it, and it has some awesome features to it. And I'm sure when we're on the track, we're going to experience this ourselves, but luckily for us, it's digitally, and we don't have to experience the pain of accidents brutally, physically in person, like some of these other race car drivers in the world have. Now, it's a good thing that the bikes use this inside layout up to the year 2000, because coming into the S's, the motorcycles would enter in at 200 kilometers an hour. So Sandown, you would have seen the layout by now up in the track. It's very long straights. It's quite wild. I think it's called the home of horsepower is the name that they like to give it, just because it's such long speed, high. You just need the power there, like Mercedes would do great at if they come here in the Formula One. I've seen that the runoff section has been extended because there was monstrous crashes there in the V8 supercars. And I believe that extended version would be added into the game. They wouldn't have, unless they scanned it too long ago when they did it. Either way though, flat out into these chicanes, it's going to be massive. It's going to be intense, low grip on iRacing. Now we'll jump over to the computer here. I've got some onboard videos loaded up so we can see and analyze on the fly exactly kind of what to expect when we jump on for the sim for the first couple laps. Okay, so I've got an onboard loaded up here, ready to go. Make sure you guys go and subscribe to Jaden Ojeda. I don't know if he uploads much, but I know he is an actual driver and I have seen him race in person before. And a guy comments here, I have no experience with the track, not even watched it on YouTube, but comparing the two track maps, so he's just typed in the other one coming as well as Sandown. Looks a bit dull with long straights. What is the best part of it? And if you look at the track map, is not that wrong. Like, it's just massive. Like I said, there's a horse track here in the center. But someone replies to him, Gullible Goose, it's a very demanding track. Might look slow from a track map, but it's very fast and tight circuit with a couple crazy fast corners. It's a fan favorite in supercars. And we'll see exactly what he's talking about coming out of turn 12 here, coming on to turn 13. So over the start finish line to start a flying lap. I'll turn it right down, not to use this guy's content, but I just want to show you guys a nice, great onboard view. So make sure you go and subscribe to this guy's channel, check it out. That is monstrous. Down the main straight, pretty heavy braking zone. Going to be some passes there, but also going to be some monstrous crashes. You can imagine someone just locking a brake up. We start going to a little bit of a windy little chicane here. Mostly single file. I'll be super surprised to see if people go too wide there, but a dive bomb is possible in the corner we've just passed. Now here comes another monstrous straight. Change some brake bias on board there. The guts you've got to have coming into this. Now this is one of the corners that has had monstrous crashes. You can see it's had an extension there, I believe, if this is the updated one, and then into a nice tight passing spot there. So single file line, low grip, drafting, like, boys, don't go too wide into that one. Coming back around, we've got another like tight little chicane thing that might open up some passing opportunities, but there's a flying lap. So not a whole lot to it, but as you can see, very, 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 very fast straights. The council permit that they've established here is only allowing them to run 5 motorsport events per year. Now this really, really pisses me off. So, I mean, real estate and land, etc. is hard to come by or whatever. But what happens is these racetracks exist, and we see it again and again, how houses slowly merge closer and closer, or these idiots, we'll just call them idiots, all right? We're all motorsport enthusiasts here, and they're not. And they go and buy, maybe they don't check the neighborhood, but that's on them. Or maybe they're damn well sure that there's a racetrack nearby, but they'll buy a property, maybe because it's on the cheaper side, slightly out of town, and they're 500 meters from a racetrack, and 3 months in, they start getting sick of hearing racetrack noises and supercars roaring around track, which I think is a magical sound. The problem is, they whinge to the council, and then, such as what's happened here, these restrictions come about. So they can only run 5 motorsport events per year, but they make sure that they're big ones. Along with that, they have to be kept at 95 decibels. So that, you know, heaps of restrictions, and you can see the pressure's already been applied. So the owners want to have it rezoned and sold to a real estate developer. So I'm pretty confident this track isn't going to exist. Make sure you cop it on iRacing. We can all experience it even when its days have come and gone, whenever that may be. Now we have AI Racing, which we've covered. We have Sandown, and we have another racetrack also based here in Australia. Now this won't be all that's coming with the most recent update to iRacing, but it just looks like they're going for this nice package of Australian racetracks paired in with the V8 supercars, which already are a feature on iRacing, but we have the AI version there as well. So we have 5 nice variety of racetracks to choose from in Australia. I'm sure they'll start to add more as well, because there's a lot of us Aussies on the service. This one's called Winton, and it wasn't built very far away from Sandown, actually a little bit just before it in the 1960s. And their first event, officially, was the 26th of November, 1961, although it wasn't as grand as the Sandown one was. It did have great popularity though, so come 1965, only a few years after opening in March, they had touring cars, as well as it would have been like a joint event, the Formula 2 Championship for the state. And I'm not too familiar with 1960s race attendance, you know, numbers, what's good or what's bad, but it is stated that they had 10,000 people turn up to this event as spectators. It stayed the same for 30 or so years, and come 1997 they extended it, kind of like what happened with Sandown, and it was to fit regulations to be able to hold these larger events. So just like how the FIA has their grading, so if you want to have a Formula 1 race, your track has to have these certain specifications, you know, mostly with safety and runoff and all this stuff in order to have a race here. And one of the ones for Winton was that it wasn't long enough, so they added an extension, and they've secured since then having the V8 supercars there, Australia's biggest race series. Now I mentioned earlier in the video, to actually open the video, that one of the tracks has been named by, you know, a historic racing driver. He's had heaps to do with motorsport in Australia, and he said it's Australia's action track. And in another quote, it's a combination of long and fast straights, this is by someone else, and twisty tight bends. Which if that sounds great, you want to pair those two together, I mean that makes a great racetrack from what I would assume, you know, if you just hear that by itself. But we'll jump on board for a lap around, and I think they're pretty spot on about it. Okay, so here we come up the main straight, nice and wide track. You go full wide up here, and I'm sure some people will. Into a fast, wide chicane. This is giving me, I was just watching Jeddah onboard vibes. They added to the F1 game. Now I've seen a lot of passing go down here in racing, with slight variation to the height of the track here, which makes the best racetracks. You have to have ups and downs. So already I can see 2 or 3, and I have seen a lot of passing out of the chicane as well, mostly into the race, into later stages, but a lot of different passing points. And I do want to rewind it here slightly, because you can see as we come into nice fast chicane here, you can go wide and cut back on them. And there is ability here to go too wide, as crazy as it would seem. Now, up and over the hill, heaps of room here we're going to have to defend, so there will be a lot of passing going to this track. We pass around the second corner here, and because there's so much passing and ability to weave in between, you'll be going too wide. And I can just imagine too wide through this long, sweeping left-hander with not much grip at all into a tightening right-hander. Just opens the door for so much great racing, and this is probably, I mean, I'm just guessing. Again, opening up, sweeping into a left-hander now, tightening. So you have to leave the door open for the fastest line. You can go out, and they're going to try and exit, so you can come back. Oh man. This is looking to be, I don't want to get too excited, too ahead of myself, but maybe one of the best racing tracks for actual racing side by side that will be available in iRacing. I mean, there's plenty on there, but this one just looks, especially coming off Sandown, which is horsepower central and long straights and just a bit wild. This looks fast in some sections, but like in that quote we read before, has its tight and windy sections. It's going to make great racing. Like I said, 3 kilometers, 2 miles, 12 turns on that one, and I'm really excited. Winton's my most excited track. I want to hear what you're most excited about out of those 2 pieces of track content that we're going to get. But that won't be all we're going to get. I am 90% certain that iRacing will not just deploy Australian content. That sounds silly. So we can expect more things. What they are going to be, though, is completely up for speculation, and I'd love to end the video with that. So the Mercedes brand deal, which we'll probably cover in another video coming, but we'll briefly mention it here as well, was signed. Now, I believe they would have announced that one straight away. That's not going to be in the same systematic approach that they do with their content releases, where they announce, you know, where, and they show a picture of what they're working on, and they roll it out 3 months later at the end of the season. I think they just wanted to get out there straight away before it got leaked that they paired with Mercedes. So I personally don't expect us to have the W12 Formula 1 cars. And if you didn't know that, you can be damn excited. We're going to get Formula 1 properly, and the 2022 version in iRacing. That's how they've got around the licensing through Codemasters and the F1 games, which is unbelievably strategic from iRacing standpoint. So I don't think we're going to get the Formula 1 cars, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get updates to the GT3s. I mean, the Audi's been in there forever, and we had an update to the Evo version of the Ferrari. Not super exciting, but they do got to keep things fresh. Or what would be even cooler is if we get a new GT3 or GTE car on the menu. I mean, we still got Bentley out there. We've had previous Aston Martin model race cars in the game, but we're yet to see the GT3 Aston Martin. So these big brands that are really, you know, popular in GT3, we're missing. We're missing Bentley, we're missing Jag if you're into Jag, we're missing Aston Martins. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that comes along, as well as maybe another track. Depends how big this patch is going to be, but I want to hear what you are expecting in iRacing to come. It's confirmed we have the 2 tracks and AI V8 Supercar Racing, which even alone, just Winton alone, I'm super excited for. Thanks so much for sticking around if you made it the whole way through this video. I'm going to do a lot more content, just keeping you up to date with what's happening in iRacing, because it gets me really excited and I want to share the excitement with you guys. So if you want to see more of that, you can always like and subscribe. We do heaps of just simulator and racing here. And I want to thank you for sticking around for most of the video, if not all of it. Really appreciate it. So I will see you guys next time.